The morning started like any other episode of the View Table of seasoned hosts. A buzzing studio audience, and a high-profile guest slated to appear. But no one was prepared for what would unfold when Johnny Depp took his seat across from Joy Behar, the actor, known for his calm yet unpredictable demeanor, had rarely graced daytime TV. He was there, supposedly, to discuss a new indie project. But the tension between Depp and Behar began the moment she introduced him. "A man who knows a thing or two about trials, public and private," she said, half smirking. The audience chuckled nervously. Depp's eyes narrowed, but he said, "Nothing." He smiled, adjusted his rings, and leaned into the mic. "Let's try and keep this classy," he said softly. That comment, subtle but sharp, drew a few audible gasps. What was supposed to be a light celebrity interview had just taken a hard turn into unpredictable territory. Asterisk, as the questions began, it became clear Joy had no interest in softball inquiries. "Do you think your reputation has eclipsed your talent?" she asked directly. Even the other co-hosts seemed surprised. Johnny blinked slowly. "Depends who's holding the flashlight," he replied with a smirk. The audience reacted with a mix of laughter and stunned silence. The camera cut to Sunny Hostin, who raised her eyebrows, clearly sensing things were veering off course. Behar wasn't done. She leaned forward. "You've been accused of everything from chaos to manipulation. At some point, don't you take responsibility?" Depp stared at her, expression unreadable. "Joy, I came here to talk art, not autopsies." The tension in the studio became so thick it felt electric. Somewhere in the control room, a producer's hand hovered over the cut to commercial button. But they didn't press it, not yet. Asterisk, the audience sensed the shift. It wasn't entertainment anymore, it was confrontation. Depp turned toward the crowd briefly and nodded, almost as if asking them to witness what was happening. Behar pressed on, doubling down. "You've sued tabloids, journalists, even exes. But isn't your real battle with public perception?" Depp chuckled, but it wasn't lighthearted. "Perception is rented," he said. "Character is owned."
Oh.
The studio erupted in spontaneous applause. Behar, momentarily stunned, blinked hard. "Well, this isn't a courtroom, Johnny." "No," he said, "but it sure smells like one." The temperature dropped. The live audience was no longer sure whether to cheer or brace for more. ABC execs, watching from behind the glass, whispered frantically. What had begun as a PR win was spiraling into a reputational earthquake. And no one, least of all Joy, had control over it anymore. Asterisk, at that moment, Whoopi Goldberg tried to intervene. Okay, let's all breathe," she said, waving her hands. But Depp wasn't backing down. He looked directly at Behar. "You've made a career out of calling people out from a safe chair. But what happens when someone calls you out, Joy?" The room fell completely silent. Behar's jaw clenched. "You think I'm afraid of you?" "No," he said, "but maybe afraid of the mirror." Whoopi shot a look off camera, signaling for commercial. But the delay had consequences. The moment, now uncensored and uncut, was already going viral. Live streams, tweets, and live caption accounts were exploding with reactions. On Reddit, a thread titled "Johnny Depp just torched Joy Behar Live" had already crossed 10,000 comments in minutes. Meanwhile, Behar sat frozen, visibly shaken, but trying not to show it. This wasn't just a bad segment, it was turning into a historic collapse for The View. Asterisk, when the cameras finally cut to break. Chaos erupted behind the scenes. Producers swarmed the stage, co-hosts stood up, and Joy ripped off her mic pack with a snap. "Get him off," she shouted, her voice caught faintly by a boom mic still live. Johnny stood calmly, sipping from a silver flask labeled Truth. Security hesitated. He wasn't threatening, but the energy was combustible. Finally, one executive approached Johnny. "Mr. Depp, we appreciate your time." "No, you don't," he said, turning toward the audience. "But they do." The crowd roared, uncertain whether to clap or hold their breath. In a swift move, Depp stepped off stage, walking straight through the side exit, while camera operators scrambled to follow. The studio fell into a kind of surreal quiet. Joy sat back down, breathing heavily, while Whoopi whispered something into her earpiece. The network was in crisis mode. Legal PR and crisis communication teams were already assembling. But it was too late. The internet had already crowned Johnny the victor. Asterisk, the fallout was instantaneous. Clips from the segment hit Twitter before the commercial break ended. Hashtags like hashtag Depp vs Behar, hashtag the View collapse, and hashtag mirror moment began trending globally. TikTokers analyzed the body language. When Johnny leans in, that's dominance, said one expert. Instagram was flooded with reaction videos, memes, and side-by-side edits showing Depp's calm versus Behar's unraveling. But the deeper story was more than just celebrity drama. It became a generational commentary. Older viewers emailed, ABC furious about disrespect. Younger audiences praised Depp for calling out legacy media hypocrisy. ABC issued a tepid statement about spirited debate, but it didn't stem the tide. Joy went quiet on social media. For 48 hours, she posted nothing. An eerie silence from one of television's most opinionated voices. Rumors swirled about whether she'd be suspended, step back, or double down. One thing was certain: The View had lost control of its own narrative. Asterisk, meanwhile, Depp's camp played the moment brilliantly. Instead of interviews or press releases, he posted a handwritten note to Instagram. "You can't silence truth. You can only stall it," it read. The note, placed beside a black and white Polaroid of him walking off the View stage, was shared over 12 million times. Overnight, Depp saw a 400% increase in social engagement. His new indie film jumped to the #1 most pre-ordered on Apple TV. Studio heads called him. Brand reps offered campaigns. One fashion house offered him a new fragrance deal, calling him unapologetic elegance. Depp declined most of them. He didn't need validation. He'd already won where it mattered: culture. At a time when most celebrities played safe, he'd bared his teeth and walked through fire and survived. Again, Asterisk's joy eventually returned. To The View 3 days later, opening with a carefully written statement. "Live television is unpredictable. I've made a career out of saying what others won't. But sometimes, maybe I should listen more than speak." Some applauded. Others saw it as a reluctant half-apology. She avoided mentioning Johnny by name, but everyone knew. Meanwhile, Whoopi praised both parties, two grown adults with two very different worldviews. That's what this show is about. But inside the studio, things had changed. Staff were nervous. Producers demanded pre-approvals for all future guest segments. Some insiders claimed morale was at an all-time low. The fear wasn't just another outburst, it was the new reality. No one wanted another Depp collapse. The legend of that morning loomed over every taping, asterisk by month's end. Netflix announced they'd acquired the rights to produce a docuseries titled Clash. When culture breaks live, the Depp Behar segment would be episode 1. Interviews were already being booked with audience members, staffers, even rival anchors. Johnny reportedly gave a single quote for the trailer. "Sometimes you don't walk into the fire to burn. You walk in so they remember you can't be touched." The show was slated to premiere with a Super Bowl ad slot. And while Behar's team remained silent, insiders revealed that her agents were negotiating a retirement package with ABC. "She's not finished," they said, "but she knows that moment will define her." Meanwhile, Depp went on to quietly finish 3 new films, release a spoken word album, and donate a large sum to a fund supporting journalists' mental health. "Words can wound," he wrote, "but they can also rebuild." Asterisk, and so the legacy was sealed. One moment of raw, unscripted conflict between a Hollywood legend and a daytime firebrand had rewritten how live television would be managed, debated, and remembered. Students in journalism classes would analyze it. Executives would reference it in boardrooms. And fans, millions of them, would replay that exact moment when Johnny Depp leaned forward, eyes calm, voice like thunder in a storm, and asked Joy Behar, "What happens when someone calls you out?" Because in that moment, everything shifted. Not just on The View, not just on television, but in the fragile, fraying contract between public figures and the media. And no one, no matter how seasoned, famous, or powerful, would forget how quickly a conversation can become a cultural reckoning.